You take it away.
Okay. So, bird trivia is not on tomorrow because there's a Birding 101 class with Jamie Rotenberg. They did the bird trivia last week. So if you missed it, apologies, but you can come on April 10th at 2 o'clock to the Nature Center. Our member only meet and greet is this Wednesday at 2 at the Nature Center. We'll have an afternoon with John Ryan from Sarasota Baywatch. He will
And
be upstairs.
Sophia Hackman will also join.
She's also part of Baywatch. So yeah,
Yes,
two
she'll be
great
joining.
presenters. Wonderful. This Saturday, come and help Jean plant the pollinator garden at the Quads. So that's what it looks like now. And when you guys are done, it's going to be fabulous, full of flowering plants and some shrubs with berries. So you can park right across the street from the Southeast Quad. And that's at 10 a.m. If you do want to see the landscape design at 9 a.m.,
It's all around here, right here.
then you can go to that and join the Quads planting afterward. So,
And Pam is going to come along to the pollinator planting as well after she's finished her workshop. So that'll be great.
yeah. There's also at 8 o'clock, I forgot to make a slide. There's a photography class with Forrest Rowland. So you all can come after the 10:30 ending of the photography class, come as well. So the links for registering for the classes this week are on our website.
Oh, David, I haven't touched it.
And I think that's it. Oh, next month, we are going to try a hybrid meeting. So at 7 p.m., you can join us on Zoom, or you can join us at the Nature Center. So Tina Morris is going to be telling us about the bald eagle return to the sky. And you can buy her book at a 35% discount, so that puts it to $18.
You can see the link over on the left.
Yeah.
It's superimposed over the Sarasota Audubon Society.
Yeah, it's right above it, chelseagreen.com. Or if you just Google Return to the Sky, make sure you go to the chelseagreen.com
But you need the link to get the discount.
Well, you need the CGP35 is what you need. And
exactly.
When you and I'll be sending an email out. We'll have an e-blast with that information as well. So,
but if you want to read before she comes, because she will be signing books then, so
okay,
please get a copy. And we have another visitor to the panelist link, Edwin Wilkie, who we have an unusual situation in that people are connecting to the panelist link rather than to the.
Hey, Edwin, I just went ahead and sent you a link to your cell phone. If you could swap over to the new login, we'd appreciate it. I sent you the wrong link earlier. Sorry about that.
Okay. And Margie, go ahead and introduce the McQuades.
So I'm very happy to introduce our speakers, Dave and Tammy McQuade, who are back by popular request year after year. And tonight, of course, is no exception. I think they've got hot news for us about chasing the AIU, and they'll explain what that is, and the North America Big Year Record for 2025. So they are, if you don't know them, you should. They're the renowned Florida-based national champion birders who are going to tell us all about what doing a big year is like on a larger scale than they have in the past. They're going to talk about some of the incredible places they visited and some of the stunning birds they saw. And of course, they're going to also talk about some of the challenges involved in getting such an amazing record. So Dave and Tammy were high school sweethearts. They've always loved the outdoors, and their lives changed dramatically in 2012 when they saw the movie The Big Year. The idea of counting birds and deliberately targeting species had a particular appeal to them, and actually to all of us, maybe. They started with a big weekend in 2013, and they have been going ever since. In addition to their amazing rankings of most bird species in many places, which they'll update tonight, I think you also still administrate the Southwest Florida Bird Alert group on Facebook. And they give presentations such as the one tonight and their guides at the local Cape Cod Coral Burrowing Owl Festival. In addition, they're graduates of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Macaulay Library Sound Recording Workshop. And Dave, are you still on the board of the ABA, the American Birding Association?
Not anymore.
Well, he was. He was on the board. And they also love doing long-range pelagics in their 30-foot boat, the McLogic, in the Gulf of Mexico, time permitting. I don't know when you have time, but you sure do everything. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to them and to their talk tonight. Please take it away.
All right. Let's see. We've got to share
Mhm.
and allow to share window.
Share that window.
Share this
And
window.
then go ahead and do presenter view.
Slideshow. Presenter view. All right. How are we looking, ladies?
You've got your background in the
We've got the
foreground.
wrong computer up because all we
Okay.
see are,
How about
Sarah-
now?
no, we're seeing the Zoom screen.
Okay, let's try it again.
Try it again here. I gotta find Zoom. Maybe share.
You want to stop share and share a different screen? Is that possible?
Yeah. How do you flip between screens? With an Apple, I don't
You
know
want to
the Apple.
stop share now first.
Yeah,
Wait, we've got to get
1
back.
second. We'll get
Okay.
there.
Hit the blue Zoom square, and that should bring the screen back up for you
Don't see Zoom
on your sidebar or wherever your side menu is or top menu.
Yeah, we've lost the actual Zoom here.
There you go. Okay, I see you now. You've stopped sharing. That was good. Now you want to. It worked in practice, didn't it?
Yeah, best laid plans here.
There we
Right.
go. We're almost there. We're birders. We're not technology people. Okay. So
Just a second.
allow to share.
Yeah.
Bear with me a second. We're almost there. No, this is not right.
Okay. We're gonna allow to share window. Share this window.
There we go.
All right.
We're getting close.
Go.
And then
Presenter view.
play
Go
from
to the-
start.
Interview.
There you go.
Continue to share. Are we good?
Perfect.
Yay!
All right.
Okay.
Turn off my screen now.
All right. First of all, we want to recognize that Lillian Stokes, our mentor and friend, is on this call. She is Lillian Stokes of Stokes Field Guides, and we're just so blessed to have her here. And she's just so special. She taught us all about birding and nature, she and Dawn, and we're just so thrilled that she's on the call. Excuse my voice. I have been sick. And so if my voice gives out, I am going to have to take a break and let Dave take over. And those of you who know that will not be a problem at all. We are going to be sharing about chasing the AOU and the North America Big Year record. And it is our biggest year to date. Second, we think it'll be helpful to tell you exactly what the AOU and North America birding in relationship to birding and listing, what that is. North America includes everything from Panama north through Central America, up into the lower 48 states, into Canada and Alaska, and it also includes most of the Caribbean. The AOU is all of that plus the state of Hawaii. So that's the difference between the AOU and North America. Essentially, it's the state of Hawaii is the main difference. Now, that's probably not a perfect definition because I think there are like little islands here and there kind of thing, but it gives you a rough idea of the difference between the two and what we're going to be talking about.
Again, so we want to try and break the AOU record last year, North America record. But in order to understand why we even thought about doing that, I think it's helpful to understand a little bit about our personal birding history. We made our first international birding trip to the Galapagos back in 2012. And then 2013 and 2016, we followed that up with a couple trips to Costa Rica. However, we were really focused in that 2016 to 18 time period on really just trying to learn the lower 48 and really focused on kind of doing lower 48 big years until 2019, when we took the plunge and really kind of, for the first time, expanded our birding range to include the entire ABA area. And really, since 2019, we've really been kind of doing ABA big years every year since. However, in 2021, we decided we really wanted to kind of start expanding back into Central America. We were really starting to kind of miss a lot of those really colorful birds that you see down in Central America. And we kept running into a guy named Carlos Benthoncourt, who runs Canopy properties down in Panama. They've got Canopy Tower, Canopy Lodge, and Canopy Camp. And we kept hearing about how great it was. And we decided to finally head down to Canopy Tower and Canopy Lodge at the end of 2021. We arrived at the Canopy properties on December 26th, and we ended up finishing our 2021 year with 916 birds in North America, which ranked us number 12 in the AOU and in North America, and we finished second that year in the US. Now, it was at that point we started thinking, man, 1,000 birds would be really cool if we could get 1,000 birds in North America and in the AOU in 1 year. Now, every birder knows that dipping on a bird is bad. Nobody likes to hop on a plane and just take off and go look for a bird only to miss the bird. So we know dipping is bad. But Tammy and I have kind of coined a term that we call double dipping. And double dipping is good. And again, we know that we were finishing our year in Panama in 2021, which meant we were going to go ahead and start 2022 in Panama. Because remember, a large part of the expense when you're going around to see birds is the airplane ticket. So if you can start, or finish 1 year at a great location, and then wake up, the following year and be still at that location, again, to us, it just makes sense and, saves some extra money and allows you to go ahead and bird that location, 2 different years. So we love double dipping. Now, in 2022, we hit our goal of, seeing at least 700 birds in the US fairly easily. And we got over 1,000 birds in the AOU in North America. And it became the first time that we actually hit number 1 in the AOU. Now, we actually hit 1,000 birds on October 22nd. And it really kind of got us wondering, gee, I wonder what the record is, for the AOU, and I wonder what the record is, for North America. And it's easy for the U.S. and for the ABA region. There's a birder out of Chicago named Joe Lill, and Joe is basically the keeper of all records related to big years for the ABA and U.S., continental U.S., and lower 48. He's got a spreadsheet literally with every bird that anybody has seen on their big year, for all of the big years. Unfortunately, nobody really seems to do that for other regions. And consequently, we had to kind of rely on eBird for our data. So we started pouring through the eBird data, and we found that Noah Stryker actually had the highest eBird total for both the AOU and North America. He had seen 1,189 birds in 2015 when Noah was actually doing, his big year. So again, it was kind of interesting because Noah's AOU and North America were identical, which basically inferred he probably didn't go to Hawaii. Now, having said that, we still have no clue if there's somebody out there with a higher number that just, has not been published anywhere, or there's no Google article on it that you can find. So, for the purposes of this talk, we're talking about an eBird record. Now, in 2023, we decided let's shake it up a little bit, and we added Costa Rica and Mexico in along with our U.S. big year. And again, we came a little bit closer. We were only 89 birds off from tying the AOU record. And in 2024, we thought, all right, let's shift it again, and let's go Costa Rica and Panama. And going that route, we actually came up only 51 birds short of the AOU record. We were still 105 birds short for the North America record. So as we were finishing 2024, we were literally laying in our bed in our really nice tent at Canopy Camp down in the Darien jungle. And we started thinking about the last couple years and coming up a little bit short, every year, and thinking, what would it actually take to set the record? Now, we knew that we were going to go ahead and wake up in just a couple hours on January 1st around 4 a.m. and we were going to start birding the Darien jungle. And that's when we really started to think about what is it going to take. And we decided to make this big push in 2025. And we knew at a minimum we were going to be birding Panama again in just a couple hours, at 4 a.m. And we knew that we were going to plan on at least 2 trips to Costa Rica. And we knew that we were going to go back to the Yucatan and bird the Yucatan part of Mexico. And we started kind of kicking around the idea of maybe even visiting Guatemala. So what exactly did 2025 look like for our year?
So our philosophy for setting the record was we were going to bird hard and we were going to bird early. So on January 1st, he got me up at about 3 a.m. so we could be out the door and in the back of the truck birding at 4 a.m. in the Darien jungle of Panama, where we saw some fabulous night creatures like this striped owl, this great putu. He ended up leaving that post and flying around and chasing a moth and catching a moth. It was amazing. And then this tropical screech owl. And I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but he has one orange eye and one yellow eye. So it was kind of cool. I'm going to let you switch pages for me. On January 1st, our goal was to start out again birding in the Darien, which is really close to the border of South America. And this was important because we knew that in order for us to break this record, we were going to have to get some, pretty rare birds, and we were going to have to be able to bird in different locations that don't have all the same kind of birds. So it's kind of like birding the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. When you go down in McAllen or Brownsville, you're right on the border with Mexico, and you're able to get a lot of birds there that you don't see anywhere else. And so it was the same way in the Darien. Because it borders with South America, we were able to get some birds that don't really show up in North America. They just barely come up into North America, like this ruby topaz hummingbird and the Chaco screech owl. Additionally, we felt that the border of Panama was going to give us, again, the greatest diversity of birds. It was a place where we could go where we thought we're going to see birds we're not going to be able to see anywhere else. So that's going to help us really add to our numbers. Our guides at Canopy were focused, and they were just fabulous. They knew what our 2025 goal was, and honestly, I think they made it a goal for all of the guides there. They were all communicating via phone and via text messages, making sure we were getting our birds. They wanted us to get off to a great start, and we really did. We left Panama with 289 birds in a little over 4 days. And by the time we got home on January 5th, we were up to 323 birds, because if you know Dave, he doesn't let any time be wasted. And so the minute we got off the plane in Miami, we were immediately adding birds to our year list. Of course, unfortunately, setbacks happen in every year. And this year, unfortunately for us, was no exception. We put on a huge Christmas light display, and when we got home, we had to start taking down all those decorations. So I fell off of a ladder, and when I fell, I tore the rotator cuff on my left arm. So I birded most of the year with very limited mobility and strength in my left arm. And then a few days after that, as you can see in this picture, our daughter Katie and her husband lost their home and everything that they own in the Palisades fire out in Los Angeles at the end of January. Both of these issues weighed very heavy on us throughout our whole year. However, we decided we would go ahead, and after we, helped our daughter kind of get established, we had to make a quick trip to Texas for business, and we had scheduled some birding. So we went back out to Texas, and a couple days into our trip, a monster storm hit Texas, and birds that thought they were living in nice warm temperatures woke up to extreme cold and 6 inches of snow on the ground. So the birds completely shut down. We couldn't find birds anywhere. I think they were all huddled in bushes, just trying to stay warm. So we knew we had to make a different plan, or we were going to lose some crucial days of birding. So we decided to switch gears and go where we thought the birds wouldn't care whether it was cold or not. So we went up north to the Northeast, and we left frozen Texas, and we went up and we picked up actually 3 great coated birds. We got a taiga bean goose, a northern lapwing, and a tundra bean goose, all within a few hours drive of each other. And we were able to do it over a weekend. And we got some great birds. We also picked up some Northeast birds that are always up there in the wintertime, and just had a fabulous trip.
Where were you?
In the Northeast, I think we were in
3 different states.
Yeah, like New Jersey, Massachusetts.
Actually, the lapwing, if I recall, was, I think, in Rhode Island.
Okay.
The tundra bean was in the central part of the state of New York, and I don't remember where the taiga bean was.
I think it was in New York as well.
I think it
but
might
I
have been.
could be wrong. And you have to remember, we bird so much and get so many birds that sometimes I can't keep track of whether we saw something this year or last year or in what
Our big
state
years just
we
keep running
saw it.
together.
Everything is kind of runs together for us sometimes. So our January recap was we, finished January with 558 birds. And that included Panama, Florida, Texas, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. There you go. We were in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts.
And before I go on, are y'all seeing the slides okay? Because our screen went blank on the slide screen.
We're seeing just fine.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Good.
Okay. So, we ended.
But a menu just popped up. Don't hit up the cursor or it will end your show.
Uh-oh. What in the heck?
Okay. How's
There
that?
you go. Okay.
Okay. So again, in February, we made a quick trip back up to Connecticut to pick up a common gall that had been basically just kind of hanging around this parking lot. And, about a week later, we headed up to the Midwest to basically see some clients and, do a little bit of birding in the Minnesota and Wisconsin area. And, this trip worked out fantastically. We were basically able to get every single target, including an uncommon boreal owl. Boreal owls kind of go in cycles where, they'll kind of show up in the Minnesota area one year, and then for 3-4 years later, they don't show up, and then they come back again. So it's about every 4, 5, 6 years, you tend to see boreal owls show up. Well, we were fortunate, one of the days we were birding up in the bog, we got notification that there was a boreal owl that was 45 miles away, and we drove as fast as we could over frozen roads to go ahead and get to that bird. And my understanding was it literally flew away about 10 minutes after we left. So again, had a fantastic trip up there. And as we were leaving Minnesota, we were going to go back down into Wisconsin, where our game plan was to pick up some greater prairie chickens and some other birds that we needed down there. And they had recently had a white wagtail that had come in up there. And that was going to be our first stop. We always try and get those coated birds first. Mm-hmm. And we got about 2 hours away from the white wagtail, and we hit blizzard conditions. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was white out. The road was horrible. And just to digress for a second, we live in Florida. We are Florida drivers. We learned to drive in Florida. Driving in blizzards is not our thing. So we took a look at each other. It was like, you know what? It's just not worth it. We had to turn around and abort our attempt at trying to get the white wagtail, because if we went down towards the prairie chickens, there was no snow, down there. Where the white wagtail was, it was just going to get worse and worse and worse. So this is the bird we were trying to get. It's a photograph of our good friend Edwin Wilkie, who I believe is actually on the talk tonight. We were unfortunately not able to get it in the lower 48.
We did get it in Hawaii, Alaska, yeah. However.
So we did, we ended up finishing up February with 595 birds. We started birding in Florida, birded Connecticut, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then went back and continued birding in Florida again.
In March, we had to make a quick stop in New Mexico to see some clients and have client meetings. And we were able to pick up a few more birds like the rosy finch that frequent the Sandia crest in the winter, and ferruginous hawks. They're so beautiful. And we get to see those when we go out to New Mexico. And then we had to fly over to Arizona for some more client meetings. And while we were there, we were able to pick up several coated birds. One of which included the rufous cap warbler that's in the top right of the screen. It was a pretty long stakeout, but we were able to get it, a long hike in to get it. And then we were able to get a barreline hummingbird. There's been a barreline that hangs out at Madeira Canyon almost every winter lately. They're almost not rare anymore. And so we were able to get that, and we found a new spot for a gilded flicker where we were able to get a decent picture, because we never have been able to really get close enough to get a decent picture of one. So that was cool. And then after we finished that, we had to head back to California, because I needed to spend some time with our daughter and our other children and kind of get her situated. And in the meantime, we were also able to pick up a couple birds, like the mountain quail and
The Ridgeway
the
Rail.
Ridgeway whale. While we were in California, though, we did get word that there had been a rare bird found outside of Texas, in Texas, outside of Houston. They did a Christmas bird count before the end of the year, and they found this rare bird, but they kept it quiet because it was located in an area where they did hunting, and they didn't feel it was safe for birders. So, but after the first of the year, the bird was still there, and so they opened it up for birders. And we had to register on the computer and be like the first one to register for an open spot. And we were fortunate enough to get a spot on a day that happened to be a day we were flying through that area to get back home. And so we were able to go and get this very rare Asian vagrant called an Amur stonechat. And it was very cool. It was an exciting, probably one of the best birds we got this year. And a couple weeks later, we flew into Kansas for a long weekend to pick up several birds. The highlight of Kansas was going to this lek where they actually have greater and lesser prairie chickens at the lek at the same time. And they're real close to us. We go in an abandoned school bus that they've kind of prepared for birders as a blind. And you can sit there and they're like 25 yards away from you, dancing and calling. And if you have never had this experience, it is a must see for all birders. It is amazing. So we had a fabulous March. Excuse me. We finished with 763 birds, and we birded 8 states in March.
We started off April driving straight from the prairie chicken lek up to the greater sage grouse lek. And again, the greater sage grouse lek was just incredible. You know, the sage grouse were all really close. You could hear them booming. Just a completely memorable experience. As memorable as the greater sage grouse was, the Gunnison sage grouse, not so memorable. The closest sage grouse that we saw was probably 200 to 300 yards away. There were a couple others that were probably closer to 400 yards away. Couldn't hear them, could barely see them. Usually when we see them in the summertime, a little bit harder to find, but when we do, we always get substantially better views. So as phenomenal as the greater sage grouse lek was, Gunnison sage grouse lek, not so impressive. April saw us birding Texas for the 3rd time as migration was kicking into full gear. We love, birding Texas in April. We added a few more birds in April, nudging up to about 817 birds after we had birded Colorado, Texas, and Florida.
Which brings us into May. And it's become almost a tradition for Dave and I to head down to the Dry Tortugas the first Saturday of May every year. It's a great time to go. Migration is happening. And if you've never been there in the springtime, it is a must. I think it's one of the most magical places to bird in the lower 48. It's the only place you're going to see an entire colony of masked boobies. And really the only place in the continental 48 that you're going to see a black noddy. And we've been getting the black noddy has been a pretty consistent bird down there every year. Mid-May, you'll usually find us birding in Michigan for our Kirtland's warbler. And then instead of heading down to McGee, over the last few years, we've gone over to Chicago and Montrose Point, where they have fabulous migration, and they also get Connecticut and mourning warblers on a pretty regular basis if you go at the right time. We love birding Montrose in mid-May for migration. And I have to say that the Chicago birders are so welcoming and wonderful. We just have a great time when we bird there. Within a week of birding Montrose, we're back on a plane heading to Alaska. We bird in Alaska from kind of like the last week of May into June. We had probably one of our best Alaskas last year. We started off birding in Adak, which is an island in the Aleutian chain. And last year we had brambling, hawfinch, common snipe, rock sandpiper, wood sandpiper. We even had a gyrfalcon. But the big surprise for Adak was still coming. On the very last day we were there, we had a couple hours to bird before we flew out. And Dave was like, I really think we need to bird up on the hill. There's a tree up there. Let's go check it out. And it was just a hunch. We really hadn't seen anything up there the whole time that we'd been there that was unusual or different. He just had a feeling. And after we pulled up, we saw this brown plain bird kind of fly into a bush. My first thought was it kind of looked like a house finch, but I don't think they have house finch on Adak. And Dave was like, no, they don't have a house finch on Adak. This is something super good. So there were 3 other birders with us at the time, and we all started looking for the bird. About that time, I think another group saw us looking.
We actually called them on the radio.
Okay, so Dave called him on the radio and said, you guys, there's something rare up here. You need to get here. So another group of birders that were birding somewhere else close by came, and we all kind of started waiting for this bird. And all of a sudden it just kind of popped out. And we discovered that it was a common rosefinch. Now, this is an Asian vagrant. It's pretty rare. And it was a life bird for us. So we were very excited. And I mean, you look at it, it's nothing fabulous, but I don't think you could have seen 10 happier birders than we were. We get to the airport and we're getting ready to fly out. And somebody came in and said, hey guys, there's another common rosefinch just down the street. So we all hopped back in our rental cars. Fortunately, we hadn't turned over our keys. And we were able to get an even better look at this bird. And that's actually where this picture came from, because this bird was much more photogenic. It was very exciting. So we finished off May with 884 birds after birding the 5 states in May.
You know, our luck at that point started to run out. As we flew back to Anchorage, we were supposed to fly out the next day to St. Paul Island, out in the middle of the Bering Sea. We arrived early at the airport. We were super excited. We heard the weather was clear out there. We thought we're going to be able to get in. And we sat and we sat and we sat and we sat. And after 8 hours, they said, we're not going today. The flight's canceled. Go home. Come back tomorrow. So got up early the next day, heard the weather was still good out in Adak, and we sat and we sat and we sat. And after about 8 hours, they came back and said, flight's canceled again today. So now we've been canceled 2 days in a row. And they said, come back in 2 days and we'll try again. Well, the problem was in 2 days, we were supposed to be flying back from St. Paul back to Anchorage, where then we were going to have a 2-day window before we flew up to Nome. So it wasn't going to work. So again, I started thinking there's absolutely no new birds we can get, around the Anchorage area. And I hated, just wasting 4 days of vacation, not getting something. So we decided that after a little bit of research that I could get us a direct flight from Anchorage to Honolulu.
Now, I just want to add, it's actually cheaper for us in Fort Myers to fly from Anchorage to Honolulu than it is for us to fly from Fort Myers to Honolulu. And we can get there in about half as much time.
So, we started preparing. The problem was all we had was winter clothes. And I sat at the airport with our luggage while Tammy, thank goodness, hopped on an Uber and ran over to Bass Pro Shop, where she immediately bought us shorts because we had no shorts with us. We only had ski gear and snow gear. Now, we had a couple friends that were with us, Ethan Goodman and Margie Keefe, who had been with us out on Adak, and they were supposed to be going over to St. Paul with us. And they said, hey, you care if we tag along to Hawaii? It's like, hey, come along. We'll have a great time. And we went, and in 3 days, we birded Kauai, Oahu, and the Big Island. We added 51 birds to our AOU list because remember, Hawaii doesn't count for North America, only for the AOU. So that's the difference in our number that you'll see at the end of the year. But we had a fantastic time, flew back up to Anchorage. Next day, we were up to Nome. And while we were in Nome, again, we've got a fairly standard routine. We get to the hotel, we get our rental truck, and we immediately head to the Nome River mouth. And again, I'm going to teach you as a birder 5 critical words that every birder needs to know. Are you ready? Get ready to write it down. Have you seen anything special? Learn those 5 words. We get to the Nome River mouth, and I walk up to a guy. Hey, have you seen anything special? Yeah, I'm looking at a Siberian sand plover right now. Well, hey, that's a pretty good coated bird. We got our scope out. We looked at it. You can see our photograph of the Siberian sand plover. I talked to the guy a little bit longer, found out his name was Paul Maury, a guide from France, and thanked Paul, and we went on our way. The next day, we went ahead and, we were driving down Nome Council Road, about 30 miles outside of town. And I saw Paul. So I thought, hey, let me roll down the window and ask Paul, have you seen anything special today? And he was like, well, not today. And I don't know, maybe it's not special. Maybe it is here. I don't know. He said, but yesterday we had 2 Eurasian dotterels up off of Teller Road. And I like, excuse me, what did you see? And I asked him 3 separate times, and he said, Eurasian dotterels. And I thought, that's a super rare bird. Am I hearing him correctly? I said, do you have a picture? And he pulled up these incredible photographs of it. He said, well, I'm from France, and, we see these all the time over in Europe. Not that big of a deal. I don't know. Maybe it's a big deal here. I'm like, it's a huge deal. So we got our 3 other friends over, and we grilled Paul for like 15 minutes solid, trying to get all of the details. And all he knew was he was out on Nome Teller Road, and that there was a dirt road that went up a hill. He said, you drive up as high up the hill as you can, and then you walk the rest of the way until you get to the plateau, and it was up on the plateau. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I can only think of one dirt road that goes off of Nome Teller Road. I think we know where it is. Now, the bird hadn't been seen in 24 hours, but we thought, you know what? It's such a rare bird. We got it. We got to do it. So again, we took off. It was close to 60-mile ride, and we made that drive in record time. And as we got there, the 5 of us went up the hill, parked, started hiking up to the plateau. And probably 30, 45 minutes later, John Parker, the guy in the, top left of the picture in the middle there, and Tammy all of a sudden start waving frantically at the other 3 of us. And they obviously found the 2 female Eurasian dotterels, which are pictured here on the screen. These were the first Eurasian dotterels seen in Alaska in 20 years, according to eBird data. So the moral of the story is, if you find out about a rare bird, go get it immediately, because these birds left a couple hours later. We finished our Alaska trip by heading up to a place called Utqiagvik. Used to be called Barrow, Alaska. It's the northernmost point in the U.S., and it's a great place to see, breeding birds. However, the real hope up there is to see coated rarities. We started off by picking up, the redneck stint. A couple hours later, we had a curlew sandpiper. However, our real target was there had been a taiga flycatcher, that had been seen a couple days earlier, but unfortunately it hadn't been seen in a couple days. But we still went and we hunted the area that the bird had been seen in, did not find it. Next day, we started, birding around, looking at some eiders, ran into some young birders in a truck, and I asked, "Have you seen anything special lately?" And the first thing they said was, "Oh, yeah, the taiga flycatcher is just a couple hundred yards down the road next to that blue house." And it's like, "Are you kidding?" It's like, "Oh no, he's right down there." We quick hopped in our car, ran down 200 yards, hopped out, and we started birding it. And in the 11:30 p.m. to midnight time period, we saw the bird 3 separate times. Never able to get great photos. Unfortunately, this fuzzy photo of the taiga is the best we were able to get because he was very skittish. But again, was able to go ahead and get another really rare bird for our year. But one of our favorite rarities, unfortunately, is not actually countable, on our list. And that's the polar bears. And we've now been up to Utqiagvik twice. And, last 2 years in a row, we've been able to see polar bears. And again, if you're up there, they are truly incredible things to see. We're hoping that this June, we're going to go 3 for 3 on polar bears. So we finished June with 971 birds for the year.
This takes us into July, where we had planned a birding trip with our great friends, the Warrens, and their children, Erie, Jennifer, Erie, and Ashlyn. And we decided to go to Quintana Roo and the Yucatan in Mexico. We'd been in contact with our friend and bird guide, Eddie Ipena. We had birded with Eddie once before. So we contacted him, and he and Dave devised a great game plan to get us as many targets as we could over the July 4th weekend. And one of the goals with birding there was that we were going to be able to hopefully get birds that we wouldn't be able to see anywhere else, like the Cozumel emerald on the left and the Yucatan wren on the right. And then we were able also to pick up a very cool looking ocellated turkey, which is just a great bird. One of the beauties of birding the Yucatan is that you're birding in the heart of the Mayan civilization. So not only do you get to see great birds, but you're surrounded by all the beautiful ruins. And it is just a fabulous birding destination. 10 days after we got back from Mexico, we returned to Arizona for the second time in the year, because summertime in Arizona, southern Arizona, is just fabulous. You get such beautiful birds. After we finished up in Arizona, because we were out near the West Coast again, we headed back to California again to kind of check on our daughter and see how recovery was going. And then also late summer in California means pelagic birding to us. We love birding in California in the summertime. And we just saw a huge flock of shearwaters off of Ventura on this trip, which included black-vented, pink-footed, bullers, and sooty. That time of year is really special. We just had great birds. And by doing those 2 pelagic, we picked up 18 new year birds. So July was a great month. We added 90 more birds onto our total.
August saw us finish up in California, and we made a quick detour over to Colorado to pick up a few more of our specialty birds, things like the black swift and the yellow grosbeak that had kind of wandered up from Mexico a few weeks earlier. However, the big move in August came from our first trip to Costa Rica. And the game plan was to spend the bulk of our time birding mid to higher level elevations. And up to this point, both Panama and Mexico were lower elevation locations. So we knew that this is going to give us, some good diversity compared to what we had already seen in the other locations. And again, trip went just as planned. We picked up a lot of great birds that we never saw anywhere else in the year, including this unspotted saw-whet owl that we saw at a little over 10,000 feet elevation. It was definitely one of the highlights, albeit it was really pretty cold up there that night. And of course, things like the resplendent quetzal and snowcap were 2 of the expected birds that that we expected to see up in the highlands. However, the bird of the trip was actually a plain, dark, gray bird called a dark peewee. And it wasn't great because of its coloration or its song. It was because it was bird number 1190 in the AOU, setting a new eBird AOU record. Our guide, Anthony Arce, actually surprised us with a cake waiting for us that night to celebrate breaking the AOU record. So technically, we actually saw that bird on September 1st. So our total of 1,200 birds actually is from August to September 1st.
September was a pretty quiet month. The first bird that we added was the variegated flycatcher on September 18th at Loxahatchee. We then planned a 7-hour drive to the Panhandle with our friends Ken and Quincy Thayer for the Code 5 gray gull. In previous years, when Dave and I had gone up to get the gray gull that seems to hang out up there, we'd always seen it in front of the lifeguard tower at, a specific spot. And I mean, it just always seemed to be in that area. So I think Ken and Quincy were kind of surprised when we were pretty laid back and said, we're going to rent a chair and a couple umbrellas and we're going to sit and we're going to wait for this bird. We're not going to walk up and down the beach in the heat. We're just going to chill out. And so we all sat down, and within a few minutes, the gray gull flew in right at our feet, and we didn't even have to get out of our chairs to get pictures. So it was like a great bird. And it was also number 800. No, sorry about that. The following weekend, we went on a business trip to North Carolina, and we had arranged to go out on a Brian Pattison pelagic off of Hatteras. Now, we knew we weren't going to get a ton of birds with him, but we had hoped we could get at least 3 birds. And 3 birds is exactly what we got, which allowed us to hit 801 birds in the US, which finally put us over 800, which was not a normal thing for us. That's a pretty hard thing to do. And so we were very pleased with that. It was also bird number 1205 for the AOU.
Back in July, we started talking seriously about making a trip down to Guatemala, for our latter part of the year. And we've been to Guatemala numerous times over the last 25 years. But they've always been to visit our missionary friends down there. It was never to bird. It was, basically, as I started researching it, I realized there were a lot of birds in Guatemala that we could potentially add, to our list. So I started researching, and I found a gentleman by the name of Josue de Leon Lux that is a birding guide down there. He's one of the top e-birders, both for the prior year and all time, and started doing a little bit of research and found a lot of my friends had taken him out and just raved about this guy. So we thought, okay, let me go ahead and contact him, start trying to coordinate this. And again, this trip was going to be a little different than a lot of our other trips. We wanted to go ahead and still get as many birds as possible, but we were only going to have a couple days to do it in. And we were going to have 4 other people with us. 2 were casual birders. 2 had never birded in their entire life. So consequently, we were hoping that these 4 quasi non-birders that were our friends would still be our friends at the end of the birding trip. And it just went, fantastically. Again, we had a fantastic time. As we were doing the planning, we realized that around the Lake Atitlan area over to Quetzaltenango was going to probably be the area that we could get the greatest diversity for our list. And again, at the top of our list was the pink-headed warbler. Again, it took Josue all of 2 or 3 minutes to get us onto a pink-headed warbler. Again, another one of our favorites at the top left was the azure rumped tanager. Again, just some fantastic, birds down there that we were able to add to our list. So on October 18th, while birding in Guatemala, we saw bird number 1190 for North America. That was our white-throated thrush, not an incredible picture, but that's the bird on the left there. And that basically broke the North America record. In hindsight, we basically knew what to expect in Panama. We knew what to expect in Mexico. We definitely knew what to expect in Costa Rica. Guatemala was this wild card. We didn't really know what to expect. And first of all, Josue was incredible. All of the places we stayed were fantastic. All of the restaurants we ate in were awesome. Again, Guatemala has come such a long way since our first trip down there 25 years ago. And bottom line is, it's just a fantastic place to bird. Now, shortly after returning from Guatemala, we chased a common cuckoo that showed up in Long Island. Right down the road was a pink-footed goose. We had gotten both of these birds so quickly that Tammy was like, hey, we got both of our targets and it's only 10 o'clock. Why don't we go ahead and take a flight down to Miami and let's pick up the yellow-green vireo. The yellow-green vireo wasn't a new bird for the AOU or North America, but it was a new bird for the U.S. So we ended up finishing October with 1,263 birds, having birded Costa Rica, New York, and Florida.
What a lot of people don't know is that our big year is actually not a big year. It's actually a big 10 months because we're tied to our home from late October through Christmas because we put on a large Christmas light show in our yard. Last year, we even had a local TV station come and broadcast from our yard. And it takes us, along with our friends, the Warrens and the Lusks and the Clelands, the Thayers even helped us out this year. We were able to get it put up, but it takes us about 30 days to put it up. And then we have our yard open to the public every night from the Saturday after Thanksgiving until Christmas Eve. So we are completely tied to our front yard the entire month of December. So in November, we only added one bird, which was the white-winged parakeet. And in December, we added 0 birds up until Christmas. But for our grand finale, we ended up going to Costa Rica from December 26th on, where we birded Canyon Negro, which is on the Nicaraguan border, the Pacific Slope, and we finished at Arenal Bird Observatory Lodge. We had an incredible trip, got great views of incredible birds, but the highlight of the trip for both of us was this monstrous jabiru carrying around nesting material. These birds are massive. They're like 5 feet tall and they have a 10-foot wingspan and they just kind of like dwarf all the other birds. They're amazing. But probably the coolest bird happened to be the last bird of the year, bird number 1,263 in North America. Is that right? 1,283. I knew that wasn't right. In North America. And bird number 1334 in the AOU. And it's the white-tipped sicklebill. These birds are notoriously difficult to see, but our guide Jay with the Costa Rica birding experience was fabulous. And we finished very strong because of all of his help.
We finished 2025 with 1,283 birds in North America. In the AOU, we finished with 1,334 birds. Again, we kind of hit our goal of trying to set a new eBird record for both of those. However, I think what surprised us even more than that was the fact that we had finished #1 in the ABA area. We finished #1 in the United States. We finished #1 in the ABA continental area, and we finished #1 in the lower 48. Now, we were getting worried in the lower 48 because there was a birder that was only 2 birds away from us by the end of the year. However, I think, even though we finished #1 in all of those different categories, I think you might be surprised to realize how few states we actually birded in. Again, as we look, any state in red, we saw over 50 birds that added over 50 birds to our total. Any state in green added between 10 to 50 birds, and any state in blue added less than 10 birds to our total. So, again, we had a fantastic year. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't give a plug to all of the guides we used in Central America. Again,
Fabulous.
they were all fabulous. We would highly recommend all of them. In Costa Rica, Birding Experiences, Jay Cavallo and Anthony Arce. Guatemala, Josue de Leon Lux. In the Yucatan and Quintana Roo area, Eddie I. Pena, and in Panama, Canopy, family. I mean, what can you say? And again, we really like Eleazar Rodriguez and Jorge Pineda, there. So again, if you're ever looking at going to any of those locations, I can't speak highly enough about them. We hope that you've enjoyed our talk on our 2025 big year, and maybe it'll inspire a few people to kind of branch out and maybe try and have their AOU or North America big year, because we think records are meant to be broken. So I hope somebody goes out and breaks our record now. So with that, we'd like to go ahead and open it up for any questions on any topic.
Amazing. What can you do next?
There are some questions in the Q&A.
So what was the toughest bird for you to tick in your big year?
Oh, gosh. The toughest bird.
I don't know. They all seem hard sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I would have, the dotterel, while we got it, it was tough conditions. I mean,
Yeah, it was like 30 degrees and it was
sleeting sideways.
and-
We had like a 25-mile-an-hour wind. It was just really kind of miserable conditions up there. So, I mean, it was tough from a physical standpoint of view. At this point, we saw so many birds, I can't even remember some of the birds, that we went ahead and didn't see. Again, it's just, I mean, I don't know if I can pick out one tough bird.
So somebody asks, anonymous attendee, how do you decide a vagrant is worth chasing? What gives you enough faith
That's
in their
hard.
site fidelity to actually book a flight and rental car?
So for us, it has to show up somewhere where we can get to it. It probably needs to be a lifer for us to make a special flight.
We went for like the cuckoo. I mean, a lot of it depends, how many flights. And we could fly from Fort Myers to LaGuardia and go chase the cuckoo real easy.
But we did that also because we knew we could get 2 good birds at one time. So
if we have the potential for a couple birds, it makes it more probable that we'll do it. But on the flip side of the coin, like this year and last year, we didn't go up for the red flank bluetail up in Virginia. And there's some birds out on the West Coast that I'd really like, but it just takes so long to get out there, and it's like one bird,
and it has to work out with our work schedule too. So
you mean you work as well?
We have full-time jobs.
We have full-time jobs. So
imagine it's so hard to imagine that you can do both.
Yeah, a lot of it really just kind of boils down to whether or not we think the bird's going to stick and how hard we think it'll be to refine the bird.
And the cost. I mean,
and the cost.
Obviously we have to weigh the cost, and do I have points that I can use for a flight? What does
Tammy,
it
you're
cost
the
to get
accountant,
there?
right?
Yeah, I do all of the travel. So that's my job. Dave pretty much does all the bird research, and I do all of the logistics of like working the points in our credit cards and on flights and booking hotels and rental cars and that kind of thing.
Wow. Fran Alexander wants to know, are you planning to branch out to Europe or Africa? Or how about Asia?
Well, we still work full time, and Dave is a portfolio manager for UBS. And so we stick pretty close to home, because we can't be gone for extreme lengths of time. We do get vacations, but and we take those when we go to Costa Rica or Panama or those kind of things. But when we're birding in the US, we try to do a lot of long weekends or coordinate our birding with client trips, and we can't really do that in going to Asia or Europe or Africa. So
Now, we are going to branch out this year to the Western Hemisphere. Because we've got an exciting trip for us planned back to Ecuador, where we're going to be birding mainland Ecuador.
yeah, in the fall.
Wow. So what are your plans for this year? Are you beating a record now?
No, we will not beat our record this year. We have a couple of goals, more modest this year. Again, we want to go over 700 birds in the U.S. again. We're slightly over halfway there. We're at 352 right now.
Our goal is to do that 10 years in a row, and we are on our 8th year this year.
Yeah, if we do it this year, it'll be 8 years in a row that we've gone over 700. And then, I'd still like to go over 1,000 birds in the AOU, which we're at 558, I think, right now in the AOU.
We haven't planned any other trips other than the US trips right now, though, but I'm sure we'll make it back down to
somewhere in Central America.
Central America.
Yeah, to try and again, we started the year off in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, we're over halfway to that goal too. So, again, those two goals. And then, like I said, we're hoping to pick up maybe 250, 300 lifers down in Ecuador this year.
Amazing. Speaking of Central America, somebody wants to know, did you find the harpy eagle in Darien?
We did. We actually didn't get it this year. We actually picked it up on December 31st, I think.
30th.
December 30th of 2024. But it had a baby in the nest, and it was quite the adventure. It was kind of like that movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but this was a van, a canoe, a truck, on horseback and hiking. And I was carried by a guide. So
that was a very steep hill that the guide had to kind of help her up the hill because it was it was slick mud.
He practically carried me. I could not have done it. I was so terrified
Eliezer was incredible.
Of falling. He was incredible. So yeah, it was a fabulous adventure.
Jenny Cherry says, absolutely incredible. God has blessed you both. It's like the greatest race to see the most birds. Many people from the younger generation would compare you two to finding Pokemon. Gotta catch them all.
We did that with our kids one year. So we know what that's like. It's very fun. And it's a giant scavenger hunt. And in the process, we're out in nature and we're seeing beautiful things and we're meeting fabulous people and we've made so many friends. And honestly, that I think is more exciting to us than the birds. So although,
the journey is just as exciting as the birds themselves.
Absolutely.
I'd like to ask, do you have any room in your luggage for this year?
I don't think so. Our luggage is pretty packed.
Yeah, luggage is always an issue. Trying to make sure we have everything we need for where we're going to go and that it doesn't weigh too much. And then I'm always thinking, well, I know Dave says we're going to I know Dave says we're going to New Mexico, but I've also got to figure that the plans could change and what I might need if we end up going somewhere else. And
well, yeah, and we're leaving, Wednesday morning to see some clients in several different states, and we're going to bird along the way. So we're going to be birding from snow-capped Sandia Peak in outside of Albuquerque, into the desert of Arizona where it'll be hot. So we're going to have some very warm clothes to be up in the snow at Sandia Crest. Down to probably, 80, degree weather down in,
Phoenix.
Down in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Wow. So Jake, Petone wants to know what's one bird you want to see that you haven't been able to yet.
Well, it's not a difficult bird for people to see, but we've never seen an ivory gull.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And it's like like when you look at our list for target species on eBird, it's supposed to be the easiest bird for us to see, but we've never seen one. We've come close. We were like 3 minutes from
We
one.
missed one by 3 minutes.
But we need
Amazing.
an ivory gull.
Yeah, so I mean that's one that we've kind of talked about maybe going up for the Ross's Gull migration up in Utqiagvik in mid-October, and sometimes or lots of times you'll get ivory gull during that migration.
Well,
So we
good
might
luck
do that
to
this year.
Rick Weber wants to know, do you ever combine a Browns game with birds in Ohio?
No.
Until they start winning, Rick, I am not going back and wasting money on another Browns game. It's
No.
bad enough that I pay pay to watch them on TV.
Well, Killian Sullivan asks about your current nemesis, but I think you said it with the ivory gull, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the bird. When you sit there and you rank the birds with the highest probability of us seeing that we have never seen in the U.S., that would be our U.S. nemesis, our Central American nemesis, which I hate to call it the nemesis because we've only gone for it once and we dipped on it, is the horned guan. And
Guatemala.
in Guatemala, and we really want to see the horned guan, so we will be trying for that guy again.
Yeah, and
Wow.
We weren't there at the greatest time of the year.
honestly, I would love to go back and bird Guatemala again. That is probably in Central America the one place that I definitely want to go back to. It was very special, and Guatemala is really improved and changed so much over the 25 years when we first started making trips down there, and I would love to go back.
I hear it's really great right now, including maybe Tikal, or maybe that isn't so special. I don't.
Well, actually,
Tikal is fantastic.
Tikal is probably the location in Guatemala, if we get to go back, that we would go back to, because we've not really birded there.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I'll
the Mayan
definitely-
ruins up there are incredible too.
Yeah, I hear up
Yeah.
in the mountains, you can find them still in their native dress too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
It's really cool.
It's a wonderful country. The people there are just fabulous, really special.
So Michael Dayton wants to know, what will admission on a McLogic cost him?
We have not been out on our boat, and I can't tell you how long. We just had it serviced, and it was in the shop for 45 days.
I
So
couldn't find a part to service it with, which was not
we just
fun.
got it back, and now we have all these trips. So I don't know that we'll be going on a McLogic until this summer.
Which is normally the better time of the year to go. So the best thing to do is just have them reach out to us.
Send us an email.
Yeah, and again, we'll see if we got room on one of them and give it a shot. I will tell you, the last 2 years, a lot of the McLogics out in the Gulf have been fair to mediocre. The ones that you head further south, those have been good.
Yeah.
But you got to get 100, 110, 120 miles south
But
of the lighthouse
You've
to do
got
well.
to be comfortable on a 30-foot boat, and we're out there for 10 hours.
Yeah, 10, 12 hours.
And you're in extreme heat and maybe not seeing a whole lot, because the Gulf can just be
Hit or miss.
hit or miss. So
Yeah.
it's nothing like a California pelagic for sure.
Oh yeah, that I can imagine. Lynn Jakubowicz at Sarasota Audubon says she saw the horned guan in Guatemala 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Oh, you're
Really
killing
wanted
me.
that bird.
Right.
It was one of our target birds for Guatemala. We really wanted it, and it had been seen like within a week of us being there, but it just didn't show up the morning we were there.
Well, and you got to remember, again, we were speed birding. We didn't have a lot of time to really work it. It was either there or it wasn't there, and we
Right.
had to move on.
Yeah.
Because we were really looking at
I mean,
quantities,
we gave
not
it like maybe an hour.
yeah.
That's all
We weren't
could
really
do.
looking at trying to get quality. We were looking at quantity.
So somebody says, is the big year your favorite movie?
Oh,
you
hands down.
taken-
Absolutely.
Have you taken any notes from Kenny Bostek's playbook? I don't know who that is, but
Yeah, Kenny
No,
Bostic.
we're still married.
Yes, that's the first key, is we are still married, so I'm not taking anything from there. Yeah, overall, the big year, I watch that probably a minimum of 3 or 4 times a year.
Although I will tell you that there was a Western spindalis that showed up over in Miami, and we went over to get it, and it wasn't being seen. So Dave said, we're going to let everybody who's looking for that bird, we're going to let them look for it. And then when they find it,
We'll swoop
then
in like the
we'll
skua.
swoop in like Kenny Bostic and the skua, and we will get that bird. And in the meantime, we're going to go look for other birds because we have such limited time to get these birds.
So we picked up a half a dozen birds. Spindalis never showed up, and we made the right call.
Yep.
So yes, I guess I am to a certain
So he
extent
did-
Kenny Bostic. I act like a skua, and sometimes I wait and swoop in and grab my bird after I know it's there.
Karen, did you have a comment about this question?
No?
Because you said you wanted to answer it. I'm sorry, I took it from you. Oh, I never mind. It just popped up. I can't thank you guys enough for every year coming and talking to us. And I'm not sure I want to thank you for the fact that I'm drooling more every year that you come. It's like, oh my gosh.
We're
I
very
can't believe-
blessed. We
We know
do
it.
not take it for granted
No.
at
Oh,
all.
it's wonderful. And you guys are
very
so
blessed.
generous. I've met you on your
Mhm.
boat and you're so generous to everybody. I really thank you so much for all you do
Oh, thank
and
you.
all you inspire for all of us.
Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. And thank you to all of our friends that called it, that are on the call tonight. That was
And sorry about sending the wrong link out.
Yes.
Well, we
It
got
was
to
so
meet
nice
more
to
of your
see so
fan
many
club.
of them.
Yeah, it was.
That's right. You have a
just
big
really
fan club.
touched. It was great that they were all on the call tonight. It means a lot.
Thank
to
you
us.
guys
Thank you.
for listening.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
We're
much.
happy to
Thank
have you.
you. It was
All right.
wonderful as usual. So
Thank you guys.
So
see you
just,
next year.
yes. see
Okay.
you So as a reminder, next monthly's program will be special and then it will be live. Tina Morris, who lives in Massachusetts, will be in Florida and will be speaking live from the Nature Center. We did have it at the Congregational Church, but we moved it to the Nature Center, and she will be talking about her book, Return to the Sky. She was, as a young woman, she was tasked to returning bald eagles to New York State. And she was well prepared to do it, but she didn't get much guidance. And she's got a really good book. It's been very well reviewed. You can order a copy. Up here on the left, you can use this code CGP35 to get a 35% discount at chelseagreen.com, or you can buy one of the few copies we'll have at the Nature Center. She will be doing book signing as well. If you cannot attend live, we will have it also on Zoom. This will be a special event to put it on Zoom as well as the Nature Center, and it will be a pilot to see if we'll be able to do this in the future. So please join us next month. Thank you all for attending. This has been a great